Dear students, in this unit, we will talk about some other methods which are used by the flowering plants for their pollination. Now, many plants they use wind for the cross pollination. Those flowers or those plants they have flowers which appear early in the springs before or as the plant's leaves are emerging. So before the emerging of plant leaves, they develop flowers, and those flowers they actually use those winds or some other methods for the pollination. Now, because leaves usually prevent the dispersal of pollens because they can inhibit the wind or some other factors. So these plants they develop flowers earlier than their leaves, so that these leaves, the male part or the male gametes can be dispersed through these winds. Now, when we talk about these plants, these flowering plants, they also attract a lot of animals, which we call them as pollinators. They have co-evolved where these forces of natural selection on each of these flowers and their pollinators has resulted in the morphological adaptations which have increased their dependency on each other. Now, these pollinators they are dependent on these flower plants for certain needs, and in return, these flowering plants they use these animals for the dispersal of their male gametes in order to have the fertilization or the pollination. Now, there are many intricate mechanisms or methods which these plants have evolved in order to attract those animals or pollinators. These methods they include visual cues. These are certain chemicals like scents and food, etc. Now, when we talk about these flowers which are pollinated by the animals or the pollinators, they have certain features. For example, the colored petals, which use as a visual attractant, and certain chemicals or scents, which also attracts many animals or the pollinators, as well as many different sorts of food or different sorts of source of food for those pollinators is developed by these flowering plants. For example, some of the flowers they produce nectar, which is a sugary solution. It is produced by special floral glands known as nectaries. These nectaries produce this sugary solution, which is known as nectar, and this nectar also attracts a lot of pollinators, which are attracted towards it in order to take it as their food. Now, these pollinators, when they come to the flowers in order to get that nectar as an energy rich food, and also certain pollen grains, which are also used by certain pollinators as part of their foods. So, whenever they come to that part of the flower and when they are about to leave, certain small uh, these pollens they are attached with the body, especially the legs and the lower part of these pollinator animals, and they are carried from one plant to the other plant, and that helps in the pollination of flowers. Now, biologists estimate that these pollinator insects they actually pollinate about 70% of all flowering plant species. Bees are especially honeybees. They are very important in as a pollinator of crop plants. These plants are pollinated by these insects, and they often have blue or yellow petals. When we talk about the other color petal plants or the flowers, for example, red, orange, and yellow, these petals are able to attract certain other animals other than the insects. For example, hummingbird. It's a very small bird. It is also um, it also is attracted towards these flowering plants in order to collect the nectars, and as a result, the pollens are attached to the body of these hummingbirds, and they are carried from one flower to the other flower and helps in the pollination process. Now, there are two types of pollination, as you are aware. One is known as self pollination, in which the male part of the same flower is approaching to the female part, and they result uh, in the form of self pollination, and leading to the synthesis of the zygote. Whereas in cross pollination, the male gamete of one flower reaches to the female part of another flower and result in the cross pollination. Cross pollination is much better in evolution point of view, because it helps in the mixing of genetic diversity. Genes from two different plant species, they are mixed together, and it result in increased genetic diversity. And increased genetic diversity ensures the survival of those species better. So cross pollination is better than the self pollination in these plants.